Metoda ISIS, wykorzystywana na całym świecie do efektywnego wdrażania zrównoważonego rozwoju w 2010 roku, trafiła również do Polski. Fundacja Sędzimira oraz Centrum Rozwiązań Systemowych, od wielu lat zajmujące się promowaniem zrównoważonego rozwoju w Polsce, przystąpiły do sieci AtKisson Group.
The AtKisson Group is a social enterprise, meaning that it's a company, but it's a company organized around a particular mission and a certain set of values and a code of ethics around accelerating sustainable development worldwide. We have three divisions or programs that we work on. One is our consulting work. That's called AtKisson Sustainability. We work with companies, cities, governments. Then there's a program called ISIS Academy. That's for professional development, training programs to help people become change agents. And then we have a program called Compass Education, working with universities and schools who are adapting ISIS and adopting it for work with their classrooms and their administrations. In Poland, we're very happy to have a relationship with the Sędzimir Foundation, Fundacja Sędzimira, as one of our affiliates, working to accelerate sustainable development in that context. By operating as a network, it means that our affiliates in Poland can gain the insight and inspiration from our colleagues in Southeast Asia who have been working with these tools for some years, and exchange information with our new French affiliate, for example. And then we're putting that, the power of networking to work for sustainable development on this platform of being, again, a social enterprise committed to doing something for the common good, but doing it in a business context.
Fundacja Sędzimira jako przedstawiciel AtKisson Group w Polsce oferuje szeroki zakres usług szkoleniowo-doradczych z wykorzystaniem narzędzi ISIS kierowanych do firm, organizacji i samorządów. Skuteczność poszczególnych narzędzi sprawdziliśmy już we współpracy z gminą Zawoja, w trakcie Akademii Letniej w Mogilanach oraz realizując szkolenia dla firm i organizacji pozarządowych w Polsce. Na czym polega metoda oraz jakie korzyści wiążą się z wykorzystaniem narzędzi ISIS, opowie nam jej twórca Alan AtKisson. A ilustracją dla jego słów będzie proces budowania piramidy przez uczestników kursu Wyzwania zrównoważonego rozwoju w Polsce w 2010 roku.
Well, doing sustainability is complex by definition. So you need a kind of a roadmap that will take you step by step through the process, and that can involve a lot of other people effectively in that process. So ISIS was created out of a need to make that complexity simple or simpler, more simple. Times when it is, I think, a particularly good choice. Those include when you really must work in a sort of whole system way, where you really must involve lots of people, and where you have a specific issue maybe that involves lots of people and that you really must show some results on. For example, greenhouse gas emissions. ISIS has been used a lot for cities and towns that are trying to look at climate change strategy, because it affects everything. It affects their energy systems, their transport systems, water use, education, the health of the people. And it's a very specific and concrete outcome. Or land use planning. We've used it in the Baltic states as a tool for helping people come to new understandings about how to do land use planning, spatial planning as it's also called here. So in those contexts, ISIS is particularly good. And a third I'll say, and then that's enough for the moment maybe, is when you are in a hurry. And frankly, more and more we are in a hurry these days. We're in a hurry both in the global sense, and even our communities are often in a hurry to get something moving, to get something done. There's a reason why we call our tool set the ISIS Accelerator, because we're trying to make this process of understanding the situation, understanding why it's happening, and choosing good strategies for intervention. We're trying to help it go faster, but go faster in a way that is still anchored in strong understanding and good consensus among the participants. So those are some situations where I would say it's particularly useful.
One of the things that we do within the ISIS process is allow people to wear different shoes. So instead of you being a business person and only thinking in the context of a business person, you can now sit in the position of an environmentalist and get to see what that environmentalist might be thinking. So I think one of the advantages of this process is that it allows people to see the impacts of their particular area of focus, how it impacts the rest of the region, the rest of society. I think that was really advantageous. One of the other advantages is it's fun. The process it takes a lot of complex science, it takes complex strategic planning, and it puts it into a fun, hands-on methodology that gives people a chance to sort of loosen their tie a bit and be creative because they can sit down, talk about complex issues, but do it in a way that's still an artistic expression as well.
Proces planowania zrównoważonego rozwoju wymaga udziału szerokiej grupy interesariuszy. Wybranie ich i zaproszenie do wspólnego stołu może być pewnym wyzwaniem.
How do you get people to come together in the first place? That's always the hard thing. The term sustainability means a lot of things to a lot of different people. A business person might see it as an environmentalist's word, which is going to hurt their business. So the real challenge is getting people together. How do you bring people together from different backgrounds to talk about an issue that could mean something different to each group? One of the hardest parts of doing any strategic plan, whether it's just the process of planning or actually creating a plan, the difficult thing about that is actually putting it into practice. So you can create a plan, a 200-page report that says exactly what you're going to do, but unless you have buy-in, ownership from the different stakeholders, you're not going to be able to make that successful. So one of the things I would suggest to people trying to do this is to ensure that they truly select a stakeholder group that represents the different sectors of society.
Akcelerator ISIS to zestaw narzędzi, które w efektywny i efektowny sposób pomagają prowadzić partycypacyjne procesy planowania zrównoważonego rozwoju. Należą do nich kompas, piramida, ameba i stratosfera. Kompas wykorzystujemy na początku procesu ISIS.
We begin by taking a look first at the information, the indicators as we call them. That's the first I in ISIS, having to do with what's happening in the community, in the company, in the university, whatever entity we're working with. And that's an opportunity for people to work together in a way that doesn't require that they like each other, doesn't require that they already agree on what should be done or what the problems are. It just is an opportunity to come to agreement on what's happening, what really is the situation, what should we be measuring to know whether we're heading in the right direction. That's step one in ISIS. Indicators don't have to be about robust data sets. They can be adequately created by a well-facilitated process of gathering people's experience. And you'll find very quickly that people do have a good sense of this. And then that can maybe become the basis for more research later on if you really need it. But you don't need to get stuck on the idea that you have to have lots of good statistics to do indicators. You just need people and their experience as a starting point. Let me give you an example. In the European context, if you talk to farmers, they know what's going on in terms of the change in trends around their markets, the access to the resources that they need. If you talk to young people, they know what the job situation is, regardless of what the official unemployment figures might say. So it's also possible to make indicators out of talking with people and gathering information.
Najważniejsze wskaźniki z 4 obszarów odpowiadających 4 kierunkom świata na kompasie: środowiska, gospodarki, jakości życia i kwestii społecznych stanowią dół piramidy, symbolicznego narzędzia facylitacji grupowego procesu pracy nad strategią zrównoważonego rozwoju.
The second step is systems thinking, where we use the information we've gathered as the basis for finding the cause and effect relationships, and the causes of the causes, and the effects of the effects, and then how those things might link up together in vicious cycles or virtuous cycles, the destructive or creative loops of activity that we can get involved in and get trapped in. that allows us to then find the most important places for intervention in these systems, whether they're communities or cities or companies.
Zidentyfikowane punkty wzmocnienia, miejsca w systemie, w których nasze działania mogą być najbardziej efektywne, stanowią kolejne piętro piramidy.
We started with the main indicator, which we think is level of investment. This is this lovely shape in the middle. And we think it was like 10 years ago it started to fall. And then with the access to the European Union it started to rise a little bit. And we expect it to continue to rise a little bit if nothing changes.
Gdy rozumiemy już, jak system działa, możemy przejść do kolejnego kroku – wypracowania innowacji, czyli poszukiwania odpowiedzi na pytanie, co zrobić, by zaszła zmiana.
When we use this word innovation and sustainable development, we don't necessarily mean something new, because organic agriculture is a typical example of a sustainability-related practice that can improve lots of things: soil quality, water retention, the health of the surrounding ecosystems, the health of the people doing the agriculture. It's a particularly good example of a sustainability innovation. On the other hand, it's 10,000 years old. So it doesn't have to be a brand new thing to be an innovation. It just needs to be new in that context, in that situation. An innovation is something that's new for you, that's new for the system that you're trying to change. And it can be anything. It doesn't have to just be a technological innovation. It can be a policy innovation. It can be an educational program. It can be a new set of words that people are using that help them to think differently. It can be a vision that you help craft of the future. A set of goals that haven't been goals before, but now become goals. Those are all innovations, examples of innovations that are meaningful in the context of sustainable development.
Najlepsze, najatrakcyjniejsze dla grupy interesariuszy pomysły znajdują się na kolejnym, trzecim piętrze piramidy.
Promote the region. Zawoja is the village closest to Babia Góra, which means Women's Mountain, so we can organize a Babia festival. A festival designed for women, where they can learn about fashion, how to care for their health, and maybe also organizing a marathon through the longest village in Poland, maybe also only for women.
Ostatni krok metody ISIS to wypracowanie strategii wdrażania wybranych innowacji.
But strategy in the context of sustainable development is quite unique in terms of what is required. And again, it means that you've got multiple stakeholders or sectors and disciplines involved. It means that you've got very often a change that is going to involve a significant shift in the way people are used to doing something. Not a small shift, but a significant one. So how then can you change people who are used to thinking and doing things in a certain way? Well, that's not always so easy. And so doing strategic thinking in that context is quite important. We very regularly link strategic thinking and sustainable development with a body of theory developed by Everett Rogers and others called innovation diffusion theory. Because so much of sustainable development is about taking that new idea, that technology, that policy, that program, and getting other people to agree that it's a good idea and to adopt it and to use it. And it turns out there's a wonderful body of theory around this. It's been studied for 50 years, but it isn't so well known by the people who are doing sustainable development. It sometimes is very well known by the people doing marketing, but not by the ones who are trying to save water systems or improve community vitality or change educational curricula. So we include that in this process. And both in terms of how to move an idea forward, but also how to be the kind of person who moves ideas forward. We call that being a change agent, a sustainability change agent. Someone who understands how to work with other people and adapt an idea so that people can see the advantages in it.
Każde z narzędzi ISIS było intensywnie wykorzystywane w różnych sytuacjach i dowiodło swojej efektywności w pracy z biznesem, społecznościami lokalnymi, miastami i rządami na całym świecie.
Well, here in the Baltic states, for example, ISIS has been used in the university sector. Baltic University program has trained teachers to use these methods in their classrooms. It's been used in the community sector. We've worked with Swedish municipalities principally in applying this method to planning. We've also used it at the intergovernmental level, so the Baltic 21 process, the 9 nations that share the Baltic Sea have used it as a way of setting strategy for their collaborations together. It's been used in Latvia for spatial planning. It's been used by educational programs in Germany, by international training programs on water resource management based here in Sweden, but involving people from around the world, actually. So we've got lots of case studies here in our region of ISIS in action and generating very positive results. After 10 years of practice, I can now feel very confident about recommending the process to people.
I actually had first started hearing about the AtKisson ISIS tools when I was working in local government in Pittsburgh, and the city had gone through this planning process to be able to integrate sustainability into the planning of the region of Pittsburgh. They used the ISIS methodology, which was a great way of bringing together the local stakeholders. This included politicians, included business leaders, civil society leaders, as well as other people within the community. And this was a really wonderful process because it brought people who didn't usually talk about various development issues, brought them into the same room and gave them a structured way to strategically plan for sustainability. The result of this was the city had a set of indicators that it was able to use to do sustainable development on a regional level, and it also came up with an organization called Sustainable Pittsburgh, who was given the mandate to help lead sustainable development within the region of Pittsburgh. This started about 10 years ago, and to this day, the organization still exists and is still a leading organization driving sustainable development within Pittsburgh. So what was really interesting about this ISIS process was that they built a pyramid, which was looking at the different levels of sustainable development within the Pittsburgh region. But they were able to address a lot of the issues that had plagued the region. Pittsburgh was an old steel industry. There used to be over 20 steel mills in the city. People were all employed, for the most part, by the steel industry. When the steel industry left, going from over 20 steel mills to 0, there was a high rate of unemployment. There was a gross amount of environmental degradation within the region, and there was a lack of jobs and a lack of direction on what the city's identity really should be at this point. This ISIS process, this ability to bring people together, to hear them out, to think strategically about the needs of each part of society, not just through the lens of the one section of society, not just from the economics, not just from society or from environmentalists. This allowed us to come up with a vision for what the city should be and a direction that it should go. And this was a really great way for it to do that.
We've got a lot of case studies of people taking either the whole method or pieces of the method and finding their way to new programs, new initiatives. One of my favorite stories comes from Australia, where the city of Townsville, about 100,000 people, in a 2-day workshop came to the conclusion that they should create a world-class center on creating sustainable ecotourism locations from a design standpoint. As a result, hopping over several steps, and they say this was absolutely a result of using ISIS, they won the bid to become the host city for the World Ecotourism Summit.
Te i inne przykłady pokazują, że ISIS to elastyczna metoda, która może być efektywnie wykorzystywana w różnych kontekstach kulturowych, tak aby ułatwiać i przyspieszać wdrażanie zrównoważonego rozwoju.